Alright guys, good morning. Alright, in today's video I want to show you how to run or couple a senator top that has a bit different concepts in the flap and in the sewing. Now this was the regular cutting, is the regular cutting we always cut. Now I will explain to you how these things were achieved. Then after you must have cut out or draft out the regular bodies. Now at the center fold of the front piece, it was folded in this form. Watch how it was folded in this form, and then 0.3 or half an inch was cut out from the center fold this way. 0.3 was cut out from the center fold, and then a notching was made from here, right, as if you're trying to do your chest flap. Then you gum at the edges this way, then fold half an inch on both ends, right. At the end of the day, the opening after you have cut it out and then folded summed up to, I have roughly 1.7, 1.8, the whole opening after you must have cut out and folded and folded, right, summed up 1.7, 1.8. So now a flap was also prepared. Now the width of the flap is going to be bigger or wider than the opening. Now the essence of this, so that it will make sure that the flap will cover up the opening and then have some overlapping effects at the inside allowance. The same thing applied to this one. The first one measurement, this was cut at 5 inches because it's on fold, right. 5 inches is on fold. Then once you cut it out in this form, 5 inches on fold, then you use your material gum one layer. Don't gum the two layers. The layer you're gumming is the layer that will be facing outward. Gum one layer, then use hemming gum to hem the one under, right. This is how it is. The same thing applied to this one. Now the length will be your choice, but it should be longer than what you have opened. Now this one was cut at 4 inches width. The same process of gum one layer and then use hemming gum to hem it together this way. Then after this, now the length of the opening as well will also be your choice. From the neck depth of my outfit, from the neck depth, I think I have opening of 16 inches from the neck depth, 16 inches down. Then that's for that. Then a black piece was cut out this way, and then I pleated. I did pleating. Now I believe most of you must have known or seen how this pleating can be done. If you don't know how to do pleating, look at my previous videos on how to pleat, and then you will learn how to do this. Now the measurement is also your choice. The number of pleats will be your choice, but then I think what I have here is 10 pleats or thereabout, and then the width of the cutting was done at 2.5. It's also on fold, right, 2.5. so this is the pleats I have. Then I also cut out a piece of the same ash material. Now this ash material, the piece is just the measurement I have here is 7 inches long by width of 3.5. Then fold into two, use hemming gum and hem the two pieces together. This as well will be used. It will be in two pieces, right. This is how it is, so you use this as well while sewing. So now the same procedure of gumming and cutting and sewing, right, and then we are going to start sewing now and show us how to couple this or fix this. Now before that, I would like us to weave this. We are going to weave these edges so that you will have a nice finishing inside your outfit. Alright guys, so now I have weaved the flap, right. So the next thing I will do now is to top stitch the tip. Now the reason for this top stitching is to make it to lap properly as well, right. So you top stitch the tip. Now it's important as well you do this, right. You can't ignore this. So top stitch all this area, even though you are still going to stitch from that point later on, but still top stitch first so that your flap will lap properly without having any issues. You can decide to make it double stitch if you so wish. So I'm doing a double stitching here. The length of the flap is solely your choice. You can decide to cut it off later on. Also top stitch the other one, right? So after this now, the next you will do, you run again. So right here you have done the top stitching. So let's now start fixing the flap to the outfit. Alright, so now let's now start positioning the whole components of the signature. Right now, if you can remember, this was pleating. It will be started underneath here. Now this edge that has the folded edge, I decided to have a crossing effect here. Now you can decide not to do this way. I'm just trying to show you how you can do something similar to this, if not exact of this. Right now I'm trying to arrange it properly. So you take your time to arrange all of this. You arrange them properly, right? Take your time to arrange all of them properly this way. So you can now use your pin to hold. If you so wish, you can use your pin to hold. So this is the effect I'm going to have. So now you start arranging the flap. Insert the flap underneath, right? The flap will be under this. It will be under. Now while the flap is under, you also make sure that the flap is not exceeding the actual point it used to be issued. So you take your time to arrange it properly. Rest the black pleating on the flap while you cross your what's it called, your design any way you want it to be. You are the one to arrange properly. Then while the main fabric is being placed on top, right? So this is how you take your time to do all of this. So guys, so now I want to take my time to arrange this. So I decided to remove the fabric first, then you place the way you want it to be, then I will pin accordingly, right? Now this pinning, you should take your time to pin. Like I said, take your time to pin. Everything should be properly taken care of or note of. I'm pinning the whole piece at the down part of the cloth. So I'm pinning this whole of it, the whole of it, right? Then making sure that everything is properly aligning the way you want it to be. So you take your time to pin or arrange. So when you must have pinned the down part, you also hold this one this way. Then you pin the corresponding parts as well. You must take your time to do the pinning, right? Pinning is better off to use than loose stitch, but you can decide to use your loose stitch if you so desire. So you take your time to arrange. So when you must have gotten to a stage, you have gotten the positioning you want, you can now start sewing. After you must have pinned, look at how I have pinned all of them together, right? So let's now position our fabric on top, and then we do our sewing. So as you try to bring your fabric in this form, making sure that everything is properly covered, right? This way. Then you now start sewing. Look at how arranged it is. So you start sewing So I might likely start from up this way. I'll start from here. Then make sure that the other flap is lapping on the other parts of the piece, right? Then hold it firmly this way, and then you start sewing from there. So take your time to lap this properly. Take your time to lap this properly while you sew. You make sure that there's no gap of unfolded edge coming out. Take your time to do this. So when you get to the area or the point you have pinned, you can now remove the pin so that you will not make any mistakes that might break your needle. So I want to make sure I get to the damp part before I remove my pin. Then when you come to this stage, you can now pull off your pin, right? Pull it off, and then also make sure this piece is properly balanced as well. Make sure it's properly balanced as well, and then you sew. Now I decided not to sew here. It's just a fancy, right? You can decide to sew yours if you want to. Then when you must have gotten to this stage, you can see how beautiful the flap is coming out, right? So also take your time. Then make sure that the flap under is not equal with this one here, because if it's equal with this one here, by the time you sew on top, it will close the flap. So make sure the one under is half of the one on top, right? The one under should be positioned at the half point. So this one should not be equal here like this. If it's equal, by the time you sew here, you are closing the whole outfit from here. But if it's not up to that point, by the time you sew here will still be open for you to open up for your outfit to wear. So make sure everything is properly arranged. Then you also place this way. Make sure it's positioned. Now whatever measurements you have at the base should be maintained, meaning whatever your measurement you have at this base, this way, if it's 2 inches, it should be maintained 2 inches sewing all through. Don't allow your own to close or come open or wider, right? So try to retain the same measurements as you progress. So since I have 2 inches there, I will try and retain 2 inches sewing measurements as I sew. So while you are sewing, you also measure to cross-check your measurements. Make sure everything is properly taken care or note of. And as well, make sure that the flap is balanced, right? Meaning that don't allow this to surpass this one. You should lap at the edge here. You should lap here properly. Then you sew. Also measure the 2 inches should be taken note of. Now in such flaps, you can still do 1.5, but I think that's the least you can do. 1 inch might be too small for you to handle, so 1.5 to 2 inches is ideal for such fancy flaps. So you take your time, measure the 2 inches as well as you progress. 2 inches all through, right? You take it out all through, measure it as you progress. 2 inches all through. Take your time, go gradually, don't be in a haste to finish this, don't be in a haste at all. Take your time to do this. As you're sewing, you can see stretching the fabric to make sure it's lapping as you so desire. 2 inches all through is what you will be required to sew. So take your time to do this. Now the beauty of the outfit is your finishing. So if you're able to have a nice finishing at the end of the day, you will be very happy you tried it out. But if your finishing did not come up to expectation, you have yourself to be blamed or to worry about. Now that we have finished the sewing, let's check the results and then let's know how it came out. Now let's take a good look at it. Now look at how fine the flap is, right? So this is just going to give you another view. Look at it, it's still open. So I will now top stitch the second top stitching to give it a decorative stitch all through this area. So these things you can do better than this. Like I said, look at how it came out. Look at the results we are having. So at this point you cannot remove your pin, right? You cannot remove your pin. Then don't forget that here it might be open. So what you now do is you just open up one part and then use a black thread and lock here so that the hair will not be able to fall in, right? So I will now top stitch from the side this way. I will top stitch from the side this way. Now make sure that your top stitching is straight enough. Now at this point, if you have a decorative stitch, the machine that does the designing threading, the thread work, you can use it to guide the edges. Now it gives you a more balanced or a more fanciful finishing. If you don't have, there's no problem. Use your straight line or your regular thread then to run it. Then at this point, if you are threading the second thread, it's advisable that you give it a curvy sewing here. That curvy sewing gives you a more precise or a more fanciful feeling. Now what you might do, if you are having issues with freehand curvy sewing, you might get your chalk. Fine. Now you look for anything curvy. Anything curvy, place at this edge. No. Yeah. Now you might look for anything curvy, place at this edge, the down part that is in line with the size of this. Place at the center, right? Place this way. Then determine the extent of curvy nature you want. Mark your chalk on it so that you have a perfect curvy line at this point, right? So you can do it this way. Then I'm going to sew from the base of the from the point the chalk is showing now, right? Instead of just going straight up. So either you make it curvy or V. It gives here more better looks than flat, make it look somehow absurd, right? So you go all through this way and then try connecting from the line you have marked. Try to connect from the line you have marked and then go all through the whole curvy line. It gives you a more relaxed and better looks at that end. It's part of your finishing, right? So you still make sure you fall back to the original line you should. So look at how the curvy line is making it to be more beautiful. It looks so calculated, right? So this is how yours should be. So now you also take your time as well to top stitch the end of this. Now while sewing this, the edge of the flap might not allow you to have a thread line, so you take your time. If you have noticed that the machine has shifted, take your time to lose the thread, then continue sewing. So you continue from there. Like I said, you make sure you sew straight. So now you take your time, like I said, continue sewing. Please don't be in a haste to do this. The straight lines is part of your finishing, and you must finish them properly. If you happen to have a bent line, you must lose. You must lose, please. Then at this point, you are done with this. Then you can now decide on the level of opening you will see or you will get at the downside, like the opening here. You now decide on how lengthy you want it to be. So from the neck depth, from the neck depth, I will mark at point 7 on 8. Let's use 8. I will mark at point 8 here, right? Then I will just close it. From that neck depth, I will mark at point 8. I will lock it from there. You can decide to give it a small stitch, but I'm closing from down, so I will lock from here at point 8. I will lock from here. I will close it from there, and then end at point 8, right? And then you can now decide whatever end point you want to use here. You can now decide. So I will end mine somewhere here. I don't like seeing much threading on the flap area. So now that you have seen how this is done, I believe you can now do this on your own. Let me show you the inside so that you will get to know how all these things are achieved. Now cut your thread as well. Then remove your pin from the edge, and then look at the neck area. This neck area now, you will now cut it to the neck shape you once had originally. Cut to that neck shape this way as well, place it equally as well, and then you also cut to that neck shape. Now all these things I'm showing you is to enable you do similar works or do something exact of this. So this is how it will come out, right? Look at the outfit we have made. Look at the down finishing. This is how yours should be. You see how fanciful this curvy nature gave us. So everything is programmed. So don't use your freehand sewing to sew here. You might end up not getting an exact curve you want. Look at how balanced this is looking. Then look at how fine here it's looking. Then I will now use either hemming gum to hem here. I just put hemming gum here, iron from the inside to close here, or use a black thread, just lock it up from here, and that's all for the flap. Now let's take a look at the underneath to see how it is. So look at the underneath. Then you are now going to cut off the excesses here. Excesses, you now cut it off from here. You cut it off from here. Then you might now go and weave again. If you so wish, you now weave again, so that by the end of the day you have achieved a very nice flap. Now you cut it off from here. So you might now go and weave all this together, weave the curvy area and weave everything, and then you are done with your flap. So the regular sewing processes continues, and then I hope this video will help you to go your way making something similar. Look at how the threading, how straight it is. Please, yours should be in this form. Yours should be in this form. Look at it. Yours should be in this form, right? So here it's already closed, so there's nothing that should worry about here, because the threading here has locked up here. So look at this is how the base here is, right? You can see. So we are done with this. So now the regular sewing continues, and then that's the end of the video. I hope this will help you to achieve this. Thank you for watching.